Hey, party people. Last week I talked about the entire process of making clothes, all the way from taking your idea, sourcing your materials, making samples, pushing it through market, sales and marketing, all the way to mass production. And I framed that in terms of who you need to hire along the way, what skills you need to either acquire or hire to get your product made and sent to market and mass produced. Today, I want to walk you through the same steps again, except I want to talk about how at each step you can make a more sustainable choice. Okay. And, you might not think, oh, I can't do everything sustainable, but maybe you could insert some more sustainable choices along the way and grow upon those, expand upon those, add more sustainable choices as you grow your company. Okay. So let's start from the top again, which is your idea. And when you're talking about ideas, okay, I always say that sustainable collections do not have to be inspired by sustainable things. Okay, you don't have to be inspired by Mother Nature. You don't have to be inspired by trees, weather. What are sustainable things? I don't know. You can be inspired by things that have nothing to do with pollution or oceans. Just be inspired by a work of art that you think is very beautiful, or a work of art that is so ugly you have a deep desire to fix it. Whatever it is you want, your idea can come from anywhere. Okay, so don't let that stop you. It's like you can only be sustainable if you're inspired by alligators and saving the whales. So my husband told me this insane news story he read about orcas and how this one young orca started this trend of wearing a salmon as a hat. And then a bunch of his orca friends started wearing salmon on their heads as like a hat. True story. Truth is stranger than fiction. Anyway, let your ideas come from anywhere. Okay. When you're putting your idea together, okay, as I always say, always do your technical flats. Flats are called flats because you're supposed to draw the garment as if they were laying flat on a table. But even better than that would be to get a 3D rendering of your idea. So someone who knows like Clo 3D, some sort of 3D rendering, because then you can truly turn it around. You know how I'm always saying, no coffin garments, design on the round. So you're looking at the whole design on the round, and you can spin it around, and you can put it on a human, like an avatar on screen. You can have that avatar walking and doing things in your garment. You can apply textures and prints and things to that rendering. And you may decide at that point, this is a bad idea. You might decide this is the best idea I've ever had. Let's proceed with the tech pack pattern and sample. But you could save yourself a lot of time and a ton of resources by starting off with the 3D rendering. And in terms of hiring, you can hire someone to do Clo 3D or whatever other 3D. I think there's Marvelous Designer. I'm sure there's a new one popping up every day. Or you can hire someone. You can learn it yourself, whatever you want to do. It can be done alongside your tech pack in terms of order of operations. Have enough information in a tech pack for the renderer to put the garment together. And then once you decide, oh, I actually really like this garment, and then in the rendering process, be like, oh, you know what? I want it to hit more mid-thigh. I want it to hit more closer to the knee. Actually, I think a full-length sleeve would be better than a 3/4 sleeve. So you're, again, designing and fitting on the rendering. And so that when you do your pattern and sample, it is much closer to the final iteration you had in your mind. And so you're doing fewer samples, fewer fittings. And so you might be eating up a lot of time in the rendering process that you actually might be saving in the whole, revising patterns, revising samples, and getting fittings process. Okay. But even, tech, we're doing things in Excel. I mean, bigger companies, they have like big software that run through the whole program and do all kinds of things like track inventory and issue cut tickets. Smaller companies, I mean, even companies that are doing tens of millions of dollars will use Excel for line sheets. Ask me how I know. Like literally, I've worked for companies who do tens of millions of dollars with the business and run all their tech packs in Excel. So, maybe don't print so many copies. That's pretty much it. And then with pattern making, you can go digital. You can definitely go digital. I teach paper patterns in my Patreon class because I think it's really the best way to teach how patterns are coming together. Like, why did this become such a wide curve? Well, we spread it because that's where we're going to add volume. Okay. And that's how the slash and spread method like physically shows you how, you wanted a 2x gather. Well, we're literally slashing and spreading 2x. Okay. So there's a lot of the mechanics of pattern making that I think are most easily learned by doing it by hand. But if you're hiring a pattern maker, do digital patterns. It's funny is like I'm in the market for an EV. My car is from 2012. And so I'm just like, he's reliable. He's lovely. He does really decent gas mileage for a gas car, but I want to get an EV next. And so I've just been like poking around, and I was just talking to my husband about like mechanics, like they really have to up their game and learn about EVs or they're going to go out of business. And pattern makers are the same. They have to learn how to use all the pattern making and grading software that's available because people are moving more away from paper patterns. And then, of course, the sample making. That's basically like you have to cut and sew the garment. Our end game is always the cut and sewn garment. So there's no getting around making the garment. Although, I have talked many times about how to make things more sustainable, just in terms of design process, things we can do like learn zero waste cutting, learn different ways to work with scrap. I'm going to go over a lot of these things in detail also in my upcoming book, hint, hint. So that's a little bit different, but samples have to be made, fittings have to be conducted. And honestly, these steps are really important to ensure that you have a quality product because my number one thing about sustainability has always been stop making shit. And I mean that literally, like stop making garbage that nobody wants. Okay, stop making garbage that's going to end up in a landfill because it fits poorly, it performs poorly, it wears poorly, it washes poorly. Just stop making trash. Okay, if you do nothing else but just make quality garments that people want to wear and hold on to and give to their kids fight over them, like go steal stuff out of mom's closet. That's a good product. That's a sustainable product. That's long-lasting, staying at a landfill product. So that's that. So the fit, correcting, rinse and repeat. Hopefully, if you've done 3D renderings and worked out a lot of the original kinks in your 3D renderings, you're going to be, rinsing and repeating less often. Okay. And then, of course, sourcing and fabric development is huge for sustainability. Make sure you're getting the certifications from your fabric sales reps. And you're like, okay, well, if it's organic, how do I know? If it's recycled, what's the certification? That sort of thing. Fabric development is also important. If you are going to the trouble of developing your own fabric, then why don't you go look for a recycled polyester option or an organic linen option? All right, let's move into sales and marketing. There's a lot of things that you can do within the sales, promotion, and marketing realm of things. And I'm going to list a few. Number one, you can run a secondhand program. So a secondhand program is kind of harder to start in the very beginning of your business, of course, but eventually I recommend you start a secondhand program in which customers are encouraged to return your product back to you. And you, in turn, can clean things up and resell them at lower prices. A lot of companies do this where they offer discounts, coupon codes to people who return their product so that they can buy either from secondhand section or new section of, their online store. They can, you can donate old things that go to some kind of recycling. There are companies that take donations of denim and they use it, they send them to companies that use old denim to create insulation for houses. So there are programs like that. So think about the kind of product you're making and how it can have a second life somewhere, whether it's in someone else's closet or as insulation, and consider building a secondhand program. Okay. In here, some kind of education. You can provide that education through a blog, a newsletter, through your social media, all of the above, because you want to get those emails. You want to get those email addresses signing up so that you can send out like special deals, holiday sales, but you are also sending them emails with news about the fashion industry, about sustainability, and and it doesn't have to be all gloom and doom. The polar ice caps are melting, blah blah blah. But like, I really need to stop saying blah 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 to things that are actually important. It makes me sound like I don't think they're important. I totally think they're important, but you get what I'm saying, right? So you can find some kind of education, build a community around educating shoppers. It's a delicate balance between the sky is falling and let's do our part. And some people are really good at striking that balance. Listen, it's a whole vicious cycle where the more something suits us, it fits our body well, it suits our skin tone well, like the more something suits us, the more we are inclined to wear it, the more we are inclined to take care of it, the less we are inclined to throw it away, and the more we are inclined to repair these clothes so that they can be worn yet again. And so offering tailoring service, offering alteration services, and also teaching how to do simple repairs, you know, that can go a really long way in encouraging people to shop from you and also holding on to their clothes. And you always want to give people an excuse to come visit your website, come visit your social media again. You could do posts on how to repair things like, oh, maybe there's a tiny little hole, and you teach them how to darn them. Forever ago, evening gowns tended to have these little packets of beads in a little plastic baggie that was hung on a little hang tag on the side seam of a gown. Remember those? And you could do something similar. There's, maybe you send them some extra yarn, so they can darn a sweater. I'm a big fan of boro, which is like the Japanese tradition of patching things over and over again and creating a beautiful aesthetic through the patching. And let me know if you want to update on my boro jacket that I made a few years ago, because it looks a little bit different now. Okay. I still love it, actually love it more than before, but maybe if you're selling denim, you sell it with a patch of denim so that they can patch jeans or take it to some place to get it patched or create their own patches, or encourage people to do things to their clothes to give it a new look. There are a lot of fun things you can do in this realm. But this kind of goes into the marketing of your product as a fun, sustainable brand that taps into creativity, gives you clothing offerings that really suit your lifestyle, or just things that really fit people well. Okay? If you're not really about encouraging people to make things, it's really about tailoring. It's offer those alteration services. Educate them on how to take care of the clothes, how to remove stains, that sort of thing. Grading and size sets, I have said before, you don't want to bother making a size set until you know it's being sold. But let's talk about production, and let's talk about push versus pull manufacturing. Push versus pull manufacturing, and sometimes people see it as wholesale versus direct to consumer because of the way those two kind of retail systems function. But pull manufacturing is when you have your orders in front of you and you add up your orders and you get the precise number of jackets ordered, pants ordered, and you cut to the numbers ordered. And that's pull manufacturing. You're pulling your production numbers from your order numbers. Okay, you pull those numbers. Okay, and in my mind, okay, this is how I remember it. That's pull manufacturing, and push manufacturing is pushing your ideas onto other people. So pushing your predictions and pushing your possibly educated guesstimates onto your production. Okay, this is gonna, of course, we talk about this all the time, but this is gonna be really difficult in your first few seasons, especially if you have no industry experience. You don't know like how you're gonna like figure out how many to produce. You know, I always say start small. Inventory is literally small bags of money just sitting around depreciating in value over time. Okay, so pull manufacturing typically comes from wholesale, where your salespeople go out to wholesale buyers. They write paper. You write down all the orders from all the different stores that you sold to, and then you get those numbers, add them together, make a few extras. That's your manufacturing, and there's much smaller risk of waste because you are cutting to the orders. Okay. And that is typically what people call lean manufacturing because there's generally less waste or less chance of waste. Whereas push manufacturing is pushing predictions. It's even if you have a lot of industry experience, you're not always going to nail those numbers every single time as to predicting what's going to sell a lot and what's not, which is typically the direct to consumer model where you're not cutting to order. You're going to put 100 pieces in inventory and hope they all sell. Push hard to sell, but yeah, they're basically hoping to sell them after you've produced them. If you want to be D2C, but you also want to be sustainable, what are you supposed to do? You can be a slow fashion company where just everything works slowly. Okay, you're not following every single micro trend so that you have excess inventory of every micro trend that hit and bounced at high frequency. Okay, chasing micro trends, other than the fact that it's not particularly sustainable or good for us, psychologically, for real. Micro trends are for people who have had a lot of experience in the market. They understand how these trends function modern day with, the advent of the internet affecting sales and that sort of thing. Like someone who's a true expert in following micro trends. I'm not that. Okay. That's kind of outside of my purview, but approach it like slow fashion. I read this article about this company that designs one collection a year. And they just push out product all year long, but it just comes from one big collection that they design. Everything is true to their brand, and it's not about following trends, but, really making clothes that are true to their brand and their aesthetic and what they believe in. And they just push products. They work on developing and pushing product all year long from this collection. And then, of course, they take feedback on fit, color, textures from, their customers as they push better and better product down the year. And so you can have a steady stream of product going out without overloading on everything. Like drop a dress a week. This week's dress is. It doesn't have to be a ton of product for you to always have new product. Like I'm always saying, always have new things for your people to want to come to your website, want to visit your social media. That doesn't mean it has to be a constant new collection every single time. Okay. can be slow. It can be thoughtful. You can keep people engaged by engaging them in your process and being like, this is what we're working on right now. This is what we're absolutely obsessed with. And people think like, that doesn't sound like a very luxury approach. This doesn't sound like a very high fashion approach. Like, I think that luxury and high fashion, there's this kind of elusive, above it all quality that makes them more special. And you can absolutely think that way. I think that's a valid argument. But at the same time, you know what people really like is when Valentino produces a reel where you show them the process of making a bag. Okay, other brands do this sort of thing, and people love that stuff. And so if you can make it high fashion, if you can make it luxurious, okay, if you can make it like a really high quality aesthetic while being like, these are the things we're obsessed with. These are the things that we're working on right now. And we really want to perfect it before we put it out there. You're like keeping people's attention. It's really within the realms of sales and marketing. And you're putting out new things for people to think about, but you're not constantly shoving out new product. So something to think about, All right. That's it for today. These are some choices you can make, some more sustainable choices that you can make in the process of, ideation, sales and marketing, and production for your brand. Please do give this video a thumbs up if you learned something new today. Share, subscribe, drop your video requests below, and I will see you in the next video.